Hello, welcome back to Over 50 and Flourishing. How many times have you said to yourself, I should write a book? My story could be a movie. Well, in today's episode, I am excited to welcome Nicole Meier. She is an accomplished author and a certified book coach. Nicole's literary journey began with her debut novel, The House of Bradbury, which was honored as Best Book of 2016 by Refinery 29. She continued to captivate readers with her second book called The Girl Made of Clay, recognized as a top book by Book Hub readers. Her third novel, The Second Chance Supper Club, was named Best New Book of 2019 by Pop Sugar. And now her fourth novel, City of Books, is out and already making waves. In addition to her writing, Nicole is host of the Steps to Story podcast, and she's a certified book coach and developmental editor. She's dedicated to helping fiction writers bring their best stories to life. Today, Nicole shares her incredible journey of finding success as an author in midlife. She'll talk about how her career truly began to flourish later in life, offering valuable insights and encouragement for listeners who are looking to pursue their passions and start new careers. Her expertise in mentoring other writers is sure to provide practical advice for anybody who's interested in bringing their own story to life. Welcome, Nicole Meier. Hey there, whether you're sweating it out in your favorite summer vacation destination or like me, still sweating it out at work, everybody wants to smell fresh either way, and that's why I love Lumi. Their body wipes, for me, are the perfect way to keep fresh and clean, whether in the office. And if you're like hiking, camping, you're on a long flight, they're perfect to pack along too. And did you know they make the perfect like mini deodorants for your travel bag? Need I say more? Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. Use code OVER50 for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code OVER50 at LUMIDEODORANT.com. Today's show is sponsored by MIDI Health. There are great things that come with age, wisdom, experience, knowledge, just to name a few. But if you're a woman over 50, it can also bring some less desirable things. Hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, weight gain, all of these symptoms of menopause and perimenopause. Yes, hormonal transition is a fact of life, but that doesn't mean you have to accept its symptoms as just another part of aging. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're going through and they know how to help. MIDI Health is the only virtual care clinic for women navigating midlife hormonal transition. They support you with safe, effective, FDA-approved medications, as well as supplements, lifestyle coaching, and preventative health guidance. What's more, their services are covered by insurance, and they are conveniently accessible through telehealth visits and 24/7 messaging. If you're over 50, use all that wisdom you've gained over the years and visit MIDI Health, because you deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. Red light therapy masks are all the rage these days, and there's a big reason why. Did you know that they can help with wrinkles and fine lines, but also things like eczema, migraines, acne, scar tissue, wound healing, relaxation, razor burns, ingrown facial hair, and more? Bon Charge leads the way when it comes to their red light face masks. You just need to use 10 to 20 minutes each day. So easy. You can use it while watching TV, cooking a meal, putting the kids to bed. It helps to boost collagen and elastin, and that's what everybody wants as we age. They are HSA and FSA eligible, giving you tax-free savings of up to 40%. How about that? Go to boncharge.com/over50 and use coupon code over50 to save 15%. That's boncharge.com/over50. Use coupon code over50 to save 15%. Hey, Nicole, so good to have you on Over 50 and Flourishing. Although I would probably put you under 40. Like, are you sure you should be on this podcast?
I'm 51, but thank you so much. I'll take that compliment all day long.
Good. Give it all day long. You look incredible.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited to share your journey with this audience. And it's always so neat finding and connecting with women
Mm.
who are discovering themselves, rediscovering, doing these big life changes, tapping into, these seeds of creativity and making careers out of them. And that's exactly what you did. You are a fiction writer. And not only do you write fiction, but you also coach and you help women discover and explore and then also cultivate and find ways to create and do it on their own. So tell us about your writing journey. I'm a writer too, and I was a
Yeah.
writer as a very, very young girl. And in fact, I used to write fiction and short stories and things like that. So tell me about your background and your love of writing.
Well, thank you. I love knowing that because never say never. Now that you have one book out in one genre, you never know, you might be writing fiction in your future.
Could be. Lord knows there's plenty to talk about. I'll change the names.
Well, yeah, and congratulations on your book coming out. And that's always so exciting. That's the best feeling. And did you know that there's a statistic out there that says that 82% of people dream of writing a book, but less than 1% finish
Mm,
writing? So it really takes tenacity and inspiration more than talent because you really have to have that stick to itiveness, right?
yeah,
You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't show up to the work, the book's never going to get finished.
yeah.
Yeah. So my journey, let's see, I told myself that I would finish my first novel manuscript by the time I was 40. That was just a goal to do for myself. It was a passion project. I was a freelance writer, for lifestyle magazines before
Mm,
any of that started. And really, when I wanted to write a novel, it was for me.
right.
And when I wrote it, I realized that, oh, this is what I've been missing all along. I love doing this. So I just kept writing books. I have 4 published novels. I write what you call feel good novels, feel good fiction.
Love those.
And
They're my favorite vacation reads.
right. And that's the kind of thing that I love to read. So I always say, if you want to be a writer, write what you want to read. So
Mhm.
I wrote my novels, I got published. It was such an amazing journey. But along the way, as you know, maybe because you've written a book, I felt isolated. I felt alone. You kind of work in a bubble. Writing is a solitary sport.
Yeah.
And yes, there are amazing writer communities out there, but I just felt like something was missing. So fast forward to the pandemic when all of us kind of pivoted,
Mhm.
I threw some workshops up online, just naively thinking that we would just be home online for a couple of weeks.
Huh.
And one workshop and 1 month led into the next month and then the next month. And 5 months later, all of the writers in the group said, would you stay with me until I finish writing my book? And I thought,
Wow.
oh, this is what I was missing in my own process. This
Mm.
is what it's like to have someone walk beside you from beginning to end. And so I said, I think I want to coach because I feel like I'm serving my younger self. My younger writer self would have wanted this so desperately. So I went and got certified. So I'm a certified fiction coach for novelists. I'm also a developmental editor, and I help women write the books, the stories that are on their hearts.
No, I love that. I love that. From a passion was birthed a calling to be
Yeah.
able to assist others, which is such a beautiful gift to be able to give and impart talent and wisdom. When you wrote your book, did you do it solo? I mean, I know I did. I just had notes from the publisher to make some
Right.
tweaks and make some changes, but I didn't have anybody coaching me or helping along the way. How about you in your writing?
Same, same. I wrote, 10 plus years ago, my first book. And back then, there weren't all these online courses, there weren't these book coaches. Sure, there were some editors, but really, most of us were just flying by the seat of our pants.
Hmm.
And it's what I call the piecemeal strategy. You're just, getting all those craft books and any bits of information and just working alone at your desk. So I definitely was alone back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's different how the landscape has changed and what now is offered to people, which I love. It's like Google you. You can go online and you can find so many assets and tricks and people and courses like yours to be able to help you cultivate your craft. I want to talk about just the actual act of writing
Yeah.
and getting to publishing. There are so many people, like you said, who feel like they've got a book in them. A
Mm,
lot of people think their stories, their life stories, are worthy of writing. A lot of people think, well, maybe I can craft, or I've lived such a colorful life. I should, make it into a story and change the names, right? But nobody sits down because I think they're afraid of their lack
mm,
of skill set or writing
right.
ability, or just some people say, I'm too slow of a typer. What would you say to all of these hurdles that are presented?
Yeah, great questions because they're so relatable, right? We've all felt that in some form or another. And I would say the first things first is to just know, because imposter syndrome will creep in,
Mhm.
know that you are the exact right person to tell your story. No one else has a story from your unique lens. No one else has your unique perspective. No one has been through the exact same experiences as you. So, yes, while some writers might have a huge skill set and they might have gotten their MFA or whatever it is, no one can tell the story that you can tell. And
Mhm.
there's always time later to hone your craft, to polish and perfect and revise, add layers to your work. But really, if you just ask yourself, A, what am I trying to say? I always ask writers, what's your message? What do you want to say about human nature? And
Mm.
also, B, how do you want your reader to feel by the time they reach the end? Those are the only things you need to start with. And
Right.
once you have that in place, and once you know you're the only person who can tell the story from your unique lens, then you're ready to
Mm.
go.
You're right. And I think too, you just have to start. And
Yeah.
I know for me, it was an October, beautiful October day, and I sat
Mm,
outside. It was just one of those perfect Texas, not a cloud in the sky, cool
mm.
breeze. And the minute I started, suddenly it was like an overflow. It was like
Yeah,
a flood was washing through me, and I couldn't stop and I couldn't stop. But I think to your point, the hardest thing is just starting. But you must encourage, I'm sure, a lot of people to just sit down and start somewhere and see where it takes you, right?
absolutely. And I think that the misconception is you need these large swaths of time. I'm going to sit down all weekend and write thousands of words in 8-hour sprints, but you don't need to do that. You could maybe, I like to set a timer over your coffee in the morning, maybe 30 minutes. Let's do a free write in a journal. And there's low stakes to that, right? You're just writing for yourself.
And talk about just the cathartic and creative release that comes from doing that.
Mm.
Oftentimes people think, well, what is this going to mean to somebody else? But nobody thinks, what is this going to mean for me?
Yeah, such a good point. It is cathartic, and there's something very soothing about the
Mhm.
creative process. It is something, I say reading and writing is like self care. It's something that we do for ourselves.
Total.
But also, when you start, let's say you started that journal prompt where you just free wrote, it's also a way of honoring your past and saying, okay, what experiences have I been through? And let's really examine that. And it's so fun to write. I always say, write as if no one's looking over your shoulder because you want to
Mhm.
write for yourself, but just have the experience because you're right. It is so cathartic.
Yeah, and if anything, if it's just your own personal story or it becomes a journal or whatever, you've still created this piece of history. You've created this
Right.
memoir. You've created a story that you can reference. And even if it doesn't go any further than that, you have it for you or maybe your children to pass it along to. So it still has significance in some way.
Absolutely. And 9 times out of 10, it will take legs, right? So someone might say, oh, I'm just going to write my own life story down, or maybe one particular experience. But what happens is they really enjoy the process.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, those 30 minutes turn into an hour and so forth. And in some cases, people say, well, I kind of want to, embellish and really go there. So I'm going to fictionalize some real life experiences that I had. And
Mhm.
that to me is really fun. And that puts the joy in the process.
Yeah, sure, without harming the innocent,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Right, it's a
Uh,
lot safer, yes.
exactly. Once upon a time, you really couldn't write unless you had a publisher secured, but now it's very, very different. You can self-publish. There are so many different avenues, right? So talk about that.
I love that you asked that because what's happening right now in publishing is things are changing by the year. Sometimes
Mhm.
I wake up and I read Substack or whatever it is, I think, oh my gosh, publishing's changing by the day.
Yeah.
But what happened, I would say, 10, 12 years ago when my first book was being written, is that you had choices as a writer. It was either chocolate or vanilla. You had self publishing or big traditional publishing. and there were no other choices. And one of them had a stigma attached because what happened is there was a flood of work coming that maybe was lower quality to self-publishing. Well, fast forward to today, and you have so many choices. And because, like we mentioned, there are courses and coaches and editors and beta readers and critique groups out there, the quality of the work that's showing up is so much greater. And so self-publishing is actually, that stigma is long gone. That's a really lovely and wonderful way to follow your passions. You have hybrid publishing, you have small presses out there, and then you have the big traditional. So really, I think it's never been a better time to be a writer.
That's so great. And I guess that would apply to anything, not so much just book, but it could be blogging. It could be like you were doing,
Right.
maybe a contributor to an online magazine or doing lifestyle writing. We're going to talk about how to advance this. Let's say in this conversation with Nicole, maybe the seed has been planted and you're like, okay, these two are inspiring me to water it. So we'll talk about these next steps and what that looks like on the backside of this break. But you're listening and watching Over 50 and Flourishing. We'll be back with Nicole Meier right after this. Hey there, whether you're sweating it out in your favorite summer vacation destination or like me, still sweating it out at work, everybody wants to smell fresh either way, and that's why I love Lumi. Their body wipes, for me, are the perfect way to keep fresh and clean, whether in the office. And if you're like hiking, camping, you're on a long flight, they're perfect to pack along too. And did you know they make the perfect like mini deodorants for your travel bag? Need I say more? Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. Use code OVER50 for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code OVER50 at LUMIDEODORANT.com. Today's show is sponsored by MIDI Health. There are great things that come with age: wisdom, experience, knowledge, just to name a few. But if you're a woman over 50, it can also bring some less desirable things. Hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, weight gain, all of these symptoms of menopause and perimenopause. Yes, hormonal transition is a fact of life, but that doesn't mean you have to accept its symptoms as just another part of aging. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're going through and they know how to help. MIDI Health is the only virtual care clinic for women navigating midlife hormonal transition. They support you with safe, effective, FDA-approved medications, as well as supplements, lifestyle coaching, and preventative health guidance. What's more, their services are covered by insurance, and they are conveniently accessible through telehealth visits and 24/7 messaging. If you're over 50, use all that wisdom you've gained over the years and visit MIDI Health, because you deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. Welcome back on Over 50 and Flourishing. My guest today is the lovely Nicole Meier. She's a published author celebrating her 4th book that just came out, fiction writing. Nicole, tell us about, well, I want you to tell us about all of them, but go ahead and give us a little tease of your book that's just out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, City of Books is my newest. It just came out. And I live in the Pacific Northwest. So it's actually inspired by a famous bookstore here called Powell's Books. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It is a bookstore that takes up an entire city block, and it's in Portland. And over the pandemic, I was crushed when they had to shut down.
Yeah.
And so many of their fans were crushed. And so I reimagined a world in which the bookstore employees move in and save the bookstore in order to keep that community thriving. So it's, like I said, I write feel-good books. So it's really about how a band of unlikely heroes come together to save a bookstore.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, perfect. What a great thing for an author to write about. Save the bookstore.
Right.
For those of us traditionalists who still like to go into the bookstore and have that tactile experience.
Yes. I love a good bookstore for sure.
That's so good. That's so good. Tell us about your other three books and just your journey as an author in general.
Yeah, so my first book, I have many books hiding in drawers that never made it, by the way. And so I
Mhm.
do want people to know that is perfectly okay. I wrote a practice novel way back in the day just to see if I had what it takes to fill a whole book. You know, it's
Right.
one thing to write an essay, but it's a whole other thing to fill 300 pages.
Hmm.
And one story that I love from back then when I was writing that practice novel is I also had a blog at the time. It was a travel blog. And I would write about fun, armchair reads, books you could take or travel. And I'd interview authors. And I was flipping through Oprah magazine one day. This was back when magazines were, way more prevalent than they are now. And
Right.
I read about a certain author. And she was so kind because I just emailed her out of the blue and said, "Would you like to be on my blog?" And she said, "Yes." I interviewed her. It was wonderful. And at the very end, I said, I have a question. Would you be okay if I asked you for some writing advice? And not only did she say yes, I went on to tell her secretly that I was working on a book. She said, "Send me the whole thing and I'll give you notes."
Wow.
And to me, that was the first time that someone really in the writing community, especially women in the writing community, had paid it forward to me.
Hmm.
And that was such a gift. And I will never forget that. And it really inspired me to always pay it forward, always help someone else that's coming up, an emerging author that wants tips, because without her, I probably wouldn't have gotten that big kickstart that I did.
That's powerful. And that speaks to the role of mentorship and how
Yeah.
we all have those opportunities where, if not asked of us, we have that chance to offer ourselves in some way. And you never know how you can change somebody's life. So I'm so glad you shared that. And I bet that has a lot to do with the fact that you're now coaching writers and helping people kind of hone their craft.
Yes, it does. I think about her all the time and I think about
Mhm.
those connections. And, creative community, whatever kind of creative soul you are, requires creative community. And creative
Yes.
community, it starts just with one person. So she was my first person, right? And
Mhm.
then you kind of add to that community, add to that network just by one writer at a time, one creative human being at a time. And it really kind of just builds you up and makes you feel less alone for sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember, let's talk a little bit about writer's block. I
Yeah.
remember when my publisher said to me, "Okay, you need to hit about 50,000 words." I remember sitting there and just trying to wrap my head around what 50,000 words was going to look like.
Right.
And like I said, there were some days where I just couldn't stop it. I couldn't type as quickly as I was thinking. And then there were other days I was just racking my brain and I didn't know
Mhm.
where to go. And am I being too repetitious? And am I writing for the sake of writing, or am I actually messaging here? Let's talk about that moment where you feel like you're just sort of up against a stone wall.
Yes, so relatable. I'm sure
Mhm.
anyone watching who's tried writing is nodding along right now.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that are so good to point out. Like I said, remember earlier, I said, know your message, know what you're trying to say about human nature, whatever it is. And the reason I say that is it will help you write forward. I'll give you an example of one of my
Mhm.
clients. She was a comedy writer, which I love. I wish I could write comedy. And she wanted to write a book with a message that laughter heals all, right?
Mm.
So her topic was fairly serious, but she wanted to infuse that humor into her book. Well, fast forward to around page 150, she lost her way and she had writer's block.
Yeah.
So I said, let's go back to your message. Let's go back and see if you're really staying on task. And we realized the whole middle of the book had lost all its humor. There was no sort of lightheartedness left in it. And she said, "Oh, I forgot my story message." So
Mhm.
once she went back and identified that, she was able to write forward and with kind of that new inspiration and add humor to her book. So it's always going back to your why. What is your message? And that will
Yeah.
kind of be your guiding light as you write forward.
Well, isn't that the truth in
Yeah.
anything in life?
Yes.
Any job, any position, anything, what's my why? If
Right.
we can all answer that effectively and keep working toward that, then I think we'll be good stewards of whatever we're tasked with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that writer's block comes and goes, but it really just is how much of a roadmap do you have? How willing are you to make discoveries along the way? And it should be a little of both, right? Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer of having a little bit of a roadmap, but not having it be so strict that you lose all the creative juices and sort of that freedom as you go.
Yeah. You said something really, really important about the human spirit. And I think that's what makes any writing effective, whether it's fictional, whether it's self-help, whatever genre it may be, that if you can tap into emotion, if you can tap
Yeah.
into experience, then you've tapped into connectivity in that person.
Yeah.
And that's not always the easiest thing to do, right? It's like you shared the example of your comedy writer losing that focus.
Right.
But, talk about the importance of writing to the human experience.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that. So we know, maybe not on a conscious level, but we know that watching films or reading books is an opportunity to have empathy for someone else.
Yes.
It's an opportunity to walk around in someone else's shoes who maybe we have nothing in common with, or we've never lived their life experiences. So when you think about what you were saying about writing about the human condition, human nature, it really is a chance to get inside someone else's head or get inside someone else's shoes, walk around, experience their life from that perspective. And I love that it builds empathy because then we are more connected as a human race. I mean, honestly, that sounds very cliche, but think about all the films you've watched and you say, oh, I get it now. I get why the person is making those decisions, even though they're bad decisions or whatever it is. I get the why behind their decision making. I get the why behind their actions. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably why The Notebook is one of my favorite movies of all
Oh,
time. Probably most women is,
right.
I don't know of any other movie. Well, there are many actually, but it just that captures to me the love story in such a beautiful way. But yes, I mean, being able to get in there in that magical, special way, whether it's through filmmaking, through writing, and in fact, that movie was based off of a novel, so it
Yes.
started with a phenomenal manuscript.
Yes.
So it just goes to show the power of the written word, which I understand as a journalist,
Yeah.
even though it's not fiction, it's truth telling. But as a journalist, we have the power in our words, in the way we speak the
Mhm.
words, to affect connection, to write to the human experience, to make a story that may not be relevant to a person per se, suddenly write it in a way where it does matter to you. And I think that's the craft in any good writing, is how can what I'm about to say affect and impact this person who's going to read or listen.
Absolutely. You just nailed it.
I've had a
Yeah.
little practice.
Oh, I just love it. And by the way, my dream job would to be in journalism if I wasn't a writer for
Really?
books. Oh yeah, I just love the whole world and I could just go on a deep dive with you. I could follow you around all day and just see like I just want to watch everything you do.
Oh, well, perfect. Okay, let's do it.
But it is true. There's so much truth in that is when you're telling a story, it's
Yeah.
an invitation to connect. It's an invitation to be part of a community or a mindset that maybe you don't share, but it offers that window. Yeah,
Mhm.
I totally agree with that.
In your writing and in your career, and did you ever just hit those moments where you said, "What am I doing? I'm
Yeah.
not good enough. I'm spinning my wheels here. There's so many others who can do this better than me, whatever." How did you overcome hurdles and obstacles that were self-inflicted? Because we tend to be the worst at that.
Absolutely. It took me a long time and midlife really helps with this because you reach a certain mindset at midlife, but it took me a long time to realize the time for comparison is over. It's time for compassion, and that means self-compassion, right? So writing as if no one is looking over your shoulder is a great kind of rule to follow. Knowing that I only have my perspective and that's unique to me and special to me is something good to follow because it sort of empowered me. I have a example of when that happened is when I wrote my very first book that actually got published.
Mhm.
I wrote based on the real life house of the famous author Ray Bradbury. I don't know if you know who that is, but we all had to probably read one of his books, Fahrenheit 451, in high school. And I wrote about his real life home where his family grew up. And I was terrified because I
Wow.
thought, what if his family doesn't like it? What if the fans don't like it? He has so many fans. And I
Mm.
really wrote because I was driven to share that story, but I was also really scared that I thought, who am I? Like, who in the world do I think I am? Well, I did write the book. It did get published. And when I had to ask for permission to use a certain quote, the family estate they asked for the whole manuscript because they wanted to see it. And
Mhm.
oh boy, was I sweating it out for those 3 weeks that they had the manuscript. But what happened is they came back to me and they said, "You have our blessing. This is such a nice tribute to Dad." And then the fans
Wow.
also wrote me letters. I don't know, I don't have it on my wall, but even one of the fans sent me a piece of Ray Bradbury's house after they read it.
Wow.
They said, "This meant so much to me. His memory's not forgotten." And so that sort of washed away all the things I was carrying. Not to say I did
Mhm.
this amazing job, but just I was enough, I was confident enough to let go of my fears to write. And then also wise enough to know whatever the fans or the readers think is none of my business. It's up to
Mm.
them whether they love it or they hate it. And I think that I would tell every writer that is just write what's on your heart and don't worry about someone else's opinion because you have no control over that.
Yes, wise, wise words there, Nicole. My goodness. I'm curious, what was it about his story that you found
Mm.
so compelling that you wanted to write an entire book on it? Mm.
So I opened up the Los Angeles Times one morning and it said Ray Bradbury's house could be yours for I think 1.5 million. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's lived in there for half of a century. He's written all these amazing books. And I can't believe that his house is going up on the market like that. And so I wrote a book, a fictionalized story, is another writer moved in and
Mhm.
kept the house going. Kind of like, my book that just came out now. If someone else
Yes,
would have
like,
moved
yeah, the
in.
library
Yeah.
or
So
the bookstore, sorry.
that was really fun for me to just imagine the home and imagine someone else moving in and being inspired and writing inside there.
That's fantastic. That's such a I mean, it's honestly, that's like a hybrid of real life and then letting your imagination run wild with
Yeah.
real life. I like how you merge those two. That's very interesting, and as opposed to just kind of pulling a rabbit out of your hat,
Yeah.
or doing like what J.K. Rowling does, writing to just this wild fictional
Right.
world. You're taking real life people or real life situations, and then you're taking it an imaginary step further,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
is fascinating.
I didn't know I was going to do that, but that's what I mean by following the story that's on your heart.
Yeah.
It's not about asking yourself over and over again, what can I write that's original and unique and will hook writers? That's going to get you nowhere because that's forcing the issue. But if you
Mhm.
really listen to yourself and say, what story am I dying to tell? That will serve you so much more.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful,
Yeah.
really. How cool. What a great story. Um, you know, I think at some point we all think that this is what I'm meant to be, or
Mm,
this is what I'm supposed to do. And we talk a lot about shifting and pivoting in midlife, and you mentioned something really intriguing, and something I talk about quite a bit, and that is there is a mind shift that takes place in midlife where you start releasing. You
yeah.
release judgment, you release should haves and could haves, and you start doing. And I think, part of it is you've lived half a life and you start assessing where you are and questioning,
Mhm.
well, am I purpose filled? Am I intent filled? I think you go through hormonal changes that also can make you a little like, I don't know if I'm really liking where I am, and I might want to do something about it. There's
Right.
so many things that are happening. Talk to the women who are listening, and men, if there are men listening to this as well, just about the shift that takes place in this time of life and the opportunity that it
Mm.
brings.
Yeah. I love that you use the word opportunity because it is.
Mhm,
And I think that there are so many people out there who do have a story that they're dying to tell, and they keep shoving it down and shoving it down
mhm.
because they don't have the training or they don't have what they think is the skill set or they don't have the support system. And I will say none of that applies.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your skill set. What matters is that you have a desire. You can learn along the way. We've all learned things and there's certain times we're like, sure, I've never, paddled a kayak, but if you teach me how, then I can. It's just like that. So I think that anyone who's listening who feels that they want to give themselves permission to pivot or make this a side hustle or a side project or passion project, give yourself permission because the joy that comes with it is, limitless, in my opinion.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
I love writing. I find it to be such a pleasurable, amazing experience.
Yeah.
Just the ability to affect thought and emotion and connectivity in another person is profound to me. That's what draws me to it. And I will say this too, there is such a need for good writers. If
Mm,
you think there's no space for you, you're
right.
wrong.
Right.
I see it in my business. There is such a need for good journalists, for
Mm,
solid writing, for
mhm.
good storytellers who really know how to, again, connect to the human experience, the
Mm,
why. Why does this matter to me? You look at Hollywood. I mean, think about the last time that you went to a movie theater and saw a great movie, well
right.
written.
Right.
I honestly can't think of it. Most of the writers, most of the actors have shifted over to streaming. That's
Mhm.
where the better storytelling is, the better
Right.
development. So there's already this shift, but there's such a hunger for good writing out there and good storytelling. And thankfully, there are these other platforms where it's taking place. But my encouragement to everybody is, you know what? The world needs you.
Yeah. Yeah, I so true. And just to kind of play off what you said is people also are yearning to see themselves reflected in a story.
Good
So, we don't always see ourselves in a big Hollywood blockbuster because it feels too glossy or too, removed, holding us at arm's length, I like to say.
Yeah.
But there are those great films and books where people coming out more and more where people are saying, I see myself in that character. I see myself in that story.
Exactly. And that's why we're starting to see more of those stories be written. That's why we're starting to see more actors and actresses who were once cast aside at age 30 now
Yeah.
having dominant roles in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, to your very point. We are speaking with Nicole Meier. She is an author of 4 novels, and we are discussing the power of the written word and why you, my friends, have a book or something in you. And on the backside of this break, Nicole, I want to talk about the course that you offer and kind of the steps that you walk people through to make it a not so scary process when we come back. Red light therapy masks are all the rage these days, and there's a big reason why. Did you know that they can help with wrinkles and fine lines, but also things like eczema, migraines, acne, scar tissue, wound healing, relaxation, razor burns, ingrown facial hair, and more? Bond Charge leads the way when it comes to their red light face mask, but they also have an incredible range of wellness products that'll help you sleep better, perform better, have more energy, recover faster, balance hormones, reduce inflammation. I mean, the list is endless. When you go on their website and take a look at their wide array of products, it is simply astounding. But that red light face mask, you just need to use 10 to 20 minutes each day. So easy. You can use it while watching TV, cooking a meal, putting the kids to bed. It helps to boost collagen and elastin, and that's what everybody wants as we age. Again, it works in rapid time. They are HSA and FSA eligible, giving you tax-free savings of up to 40%. How about that? Go to bondcharge.com/over50 and use coupon code over50 to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com/over50. Use coupon code over50 to save 15%. Welcome back to Over 50 and Flourishing. If the writing bug has bit, then we have done our jobs. I'm with Nicole Meier. She's an author of 4 different fictional novels, and we talked about the first one. We talked about the one that was just released, which is about a bookstore that closed and what happened if they didn't up in the Portland area and how it could live on. I just love how you take real life stories and then you carry them further with your ideas and your creativity in the storytelling, which is such a cool and beautiful thing. You mentioned earlier in this podcast about how somebody stepped in and you didn't seek their help, but they offered their help to you as a coach as you were writing one of your books. So you're now a coach yourself and you offer a course. So talk to us about that, about the stages and how it works and kind of walk us along.
Yeah, I love doing my courses. So I offer them twice a year and they are group coaching because what I found is so many creatives still out there want that community. They're yearning for a sense of community and connection. So I offer craft, which is writing craft, coaching, which is with me, and community, all in this program. It's called Steps to Story, which happens to be the name of my podcast too. But the Steps to Story small group I do twice a year. I have one that goes in the fall, one that goes in the winter. And really, it's for writers who want to learn how to write a strong novel manuscript. So what I call building the foundation first. The worst thing you can do, which is I've been there, trust me, is write the whole thing and then have to tear it all apart over and over because you just don't have that foundation. So
When you
writers,
say foundation, elaborate
yeah.
on what that means.
Right. So a lot of us, maybe we started out our writing by the seat of our pants, right? So you just
Mhm.
sit down, you don't know where it's going. You don't know if you have any structure. You just kind of like free thought, free thinking, what comes to mind. And I'm saying, let's have a little bit of structure. Let's learn
Mhm.
about how to write a scene. Let's learn about how to write character development and plot and pacing and all that good stuff at the start.
Right.
Create that foundation with your story message, like we've been talking, and then write forward so you don't have those what I call hair pulling iterations in the back end.
Mhm. Good point. It kind of reminds me of, and I went through this as well when I wrote my book. It was the same thing. It was an outline, crafting
Right.
chapters, what's going to be flushed out in each chapter. So you have, to this point, your foundation. When we were in middle school and high school and we were being taught how to write essays and papers on things, we would have to do our outlines and we
Right.
would title it and then it would have subtitles. And then, so again, it's every home needs framework and every
Yeah.
story needs the framework as well. So you're encouraging people, build your framework, build your why
Yes.
before you start writing, before you start the free flow.
Right. Identify that story message. And it's
Hmm.
good to know why you're doing it, right? Because that's what fuels you moving forward.
Right. And then what's the next step?
So we meet every week. They get a workshop on writing every single week. We meet for live Q&A, which I love because it's not just about me with writers, but it's about writers with one another. They're
Yes.
supporting one another. They're lifting each other up. They're sharing examples of, hey, I'm struggling with this week when my writing, and someone else says, oh gosh, me too. Thank you so much for mentioning that. It's
Mhm.
this really magical process that happens when we sort of get together and work on your creation, your creative work as a group. And so we move through that. It's about a 3-month process, and then writers continue on. Sometimes I help them with edits, sometimes they go on their way, they spread their wings and soar. But it's really a magical process. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's such a great support system, not just from you, but like you said, the community.
Yes.
There's so much comfort in sharing and just knowing you're not alone in your experience. Do you or your group, do you kind of take people all the way from start to finish, or are you kind of this sort of 3-month program and will catch you wherever you are in your journey?
Right. So a lot of times people come to me if they're just starting a book or they're halfway through and they're feeling really stuck.
Uh-huh.
And then we do kind of go through the whole process. They can stay with me if they want help pitching literary agents or help building an author platform because everybody needs a platform these days.
Absolutely.
So
Hello.
we really go through the whole journey together, but I want it to be organic. And what I really want is people to feel strong in that foundation before they jump and skip ahead. I want
Mhm.
them to build the story from the ground up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I would love to talk with you. This was so fascinating for me as an author, learning
Mm.
about the business side of
Right.
publishing and getting a book out there. It was so much more than I thought it would be. It was a very intense part of the process. I thought writing the book was challenging enough, but the actual marketing,
Yeah.
getting it out on the web, I mean, it's a business if you really want to get it out there. Do you offer assistance with that? And I'll just share, I mean, we can both share our own stories, but share that part of the marketing of the book.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that you noticed that, which I'm sure because you just came out with your book, but 10 plus years ago, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Once you signed with a publisher or small press, they would do a little bit of marketing for you. They would help you with book tours and all the
Mhm.
back end things. Well, that's not the case anymore today. And I always tell writers, just as you said, you have to put your entrepreneurial hat on.
Mhm.
Launching a book is literally like launching a small business. You have to be
Totally.
all in. Unfortunately, publishers don't have the money anymore to market you or send you on book tour or run ads
Mhm.
unless you're sort of the creme de la creme, the J.K. Rowlings of the world.
Right.
So it's the ownership is on the author to sadly have a platform, where you first then you pitch the book, then you get the book published, and then you really got to market it. And you have to market it to the right audience. It's not, I'm just marketing to anybody who reads a book. It's no, who would be interested in my message? Who will my message resonate with? So it is very strategic. I feel sorry for writers who come in thinking, this is too overwhelming. I'm not even going to try. It's just baby steps, right? So let's learn
Yes.
about writing a book. Let's learn about maybe one thing you could do to have a platform, one or two things you can do to think forward about how I might market myself to the right audience and go
Mhm.
from there.
Yeah. And I bring that up because to your point, it is a business. It
Yeah.
is entrepreneurship, launching a book. And you're right. I mean, the publishers will only go so far and will help so far, but you really have to do the legwork to get your website
Mhm.
and get your book up on your website. Maybe you're selling from your website as
Right.
well as Amazon and, Target and Barnes and Noble and all the other different places. But also, I mean, I was introduced to new venues like Talk Shop Live
Okay.
and all of these places to be able to
Right.
talk and to market the book and then booking, if you can book press tours
Right.
and doing, some people have to hire publicists
Yes.
to get the word out and get you on maybe local TV stations or radio or whatever it may be. But there's such a big business push to it that it's a misconception, I think, to think
Yeah.
once you have written the end, that it is in fact the end, because
Yes.
it's not. And it's months and can be kind of 6 months to 8 months after you've finished and it's been published that you're still working on getting it out there.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that because it's good to be honest with people who are in
Mhm.
the book world or just getting into the book world is look, this is very exciting and you have what it takes, but just go in eyes wide open, knowing
Correct.
you have to kind of wear all the hats at different parts of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also go in not thinking you're going to get rich off of your book.
Right.
I
Right.
think that's the other misconception. People hear these great stories of these, massive authors, and that's a whole different thing. I mean, when,
Right.
when you're at those levels and movies are being made off of your books, okay,
Right.
yeah, different story. But you're not going to get rich off of your book.
Right. And I always say, be careful what you ask for because the
Mhm.
larger the advance, let's say you got this magical, contract with Random House and they gave you $1 million advance. Well, you actually have to earn that out. So you don't get
Right.
any royalties until you've sold enough books to cover that. And the pressure is enormous. So
Yes.
sometimes it's nice to get the small advance. Sometimes it's nice to self-publish and just get all the money yourself. There's so many self-published authors that are really doing well.
Hmm.
And it's about the body of work, right? It's not just about one title. So if you look at it that way, it takes a little bit of the pressure off.
Sure. And even when you self-publish, I mean, there are expenses that you have to cover. What would you say from start to finish, kind of on a
Mm.
lower budget side? What are we looking at to getting a book published?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And I know it's such a broad spectrum.
There's such a broad spectrum because you can do it all yourself and literally get no help at all and do it
Yeah.
for bare bones.
Hmm.
You
Which
know,
would be what?
oh gosh, $500,
Mhm.
or you could hire a developmental editor that will really help you edit and structure the book so it resonates with readers and just kind of strengthens your manuscript for you. And that,
Mhm.
hiring an editor can be anywhere from 800 to 4 or $5,000.
Right.
And then if you do self-publish, most people pay someone to design their book jacket. And I'm not sure what the pricing is on that, but there's a range.
Hmm.
Do I want to hire a publicist? Do I want to pay for Amazon or Facebook ads? Do I want to pay for BookBub ads? Like there's so many different things you could do. So I don't want anyone to feel discouraged and feel like, oh gosh, I can't afford this or this is too overwhelming. It's too much. I don't know. Just start with the basics. What's your
Hmm.
message? What are you trying to say? Write a little each day and
Hmm.
also identify your goals. Do I want to be big? Do I want to be more boutique? Because everybody has a different goal.
Yeah. But the
Yeah.
most important thing is just start,
Yeah.
because you can decide all of those things later. Those are decisions that they don't have to be made right away.
Right.
You can always pitch, to a publisher if you want to go that route and see if there are nibbles and bites. You can self-publish, but I think it's important to discuss the whole picture to let everybody know what's involved. But the most important thing is if you feel that calling, just to start doing it and see where it leads.
Absolutely. because there's so much joy in the process.
There sure is. Tell everybody, give everyone the names of your books, where they can find you. Let's talk about your podcast real quick also. And I'm guessing you talk all about writing on your podcast and bring in different authors. And what are some of the things that people can listen to when they tune into you?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Steps to Story with Nicole Meier, and that's exactly what it is. It's the steps to take to write your story. It's mostly for fiction writers. And I really come in with accessible craft tips. Sometimes I interview people in the publishing industry, but it's really so you don't feel alone. That is my goal. I want you to feel like you have someone with you, whether you're doing this by yourself or using a coach, you have someone else there kind of walking alongside you.
Fantastic. And what
Yeah.
would you say? This is such a horrible question to an author, but what's your best book, or maybe your favorite book?
You know, my favorite only because it was my first is The House of Bradbury, because there's nothing, as you know, there's
It's your
nothing like,
baby.
yeah, seeing that first book on the shelves or opening that box where it's your first books and you can hold them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're excited to see how far you go and what you do, but most importantly, we're grateful that you're helping other people out there, because that's what I love so much about this community and this space, is just bringing on women who want to help others in their journey. So we will link all of your podcast and your books to Amazon so people can find you, or wherever people buy books. And oh my gosh, Nicole, it has just been an absolute joy talking to another writer today. And I hope that we've maybe lit the spark in somebody and they can write a book and say, you know what? It was that podcast with you and Nicole that made me do this. And here I am today. Wouldn't that be cool?
So cool. I love it. Thank you so much, Dominique. This was really a fun conversation.
Thank you. I agree. Such a lovely conversation and lovely, lovely lady. We wish Nicole all the best in her writing journey, and especially in helping others pursue theirs as well. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know what you thought about the conversation in the comments below. Maybe we've sparked writing interest in you. Who knows? Who knows where it may all lead? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, I hope you enjoyed there as well. Don't forget, if you wouldn't mind, rate, review, subscribe there, and share as well. That way we get more people in the tent for Over 50 and Flourishing. Thanks so much for being with me today. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.